What's up, you guys? It's Zamara, and today I bring you a new rant. And this one I am particularly excited about, given that throughout my experience here in the channel, I know that I have discussed a lot the importance of good communication, and I feel like I haven't stressed it enough, but this is another way that we can look at it. And this is how you can tell that people just aren't listening very well nowadays. And when you do not listen well, stuff can go wrong in your day. So here are some examples that I came up with. For instance, when I'm at work, I greet someone and sometimes they respond with, "Yes, thanks." And it's like they are used to maybe getting good customer service to where they get asked, "Hey, did you find everything okay?" And then you say, "Yes, thanks." But what makes you think that is the way to initiate a conversation? Why do you start with a "yes, thanks" when what's natural is that you greet somebody by saying, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing? What's up? La la la." So, you know, I tried to find an excuse for it, but I just can't. And anyway, another way to look at that is I ask if they need something, let's say a bag, and they say no. And then a few seconds later, they go, "May I have a bag?" And I'm like, "Sure." But internally, I'm like, did I stutter the first time I asked for that? That's exactly what I asked for, and you said no. So like, you know, I don't know what happens then and there, but another way that I find this inexcusable is I'm typically either reaching for a bag or pointing at it, or, you know, making it obvious what my question is about. And then sometimes they claim, "Oh, I didn't understand you that first time." Does that make sense to any of you guys? I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about this too hard and too critically, but given that in present days I see this happen a lot and I hear this happen a lot, I don't find any way to excuse that. And additionally, when you ask someone a question or you tell them something for their safety and they just smile or just like they just laugh. Like, I remember one time I had a coworker who was telling this one lady, "Hey, you're gonna have one bag on the bottom," and then she was like, "Ha ha ha," like, you know, laughing a lot. So when she left, I couldn't help but turn to my colleague and be like, "What was she laughing about again?" Because I'm sorry, but I just didn't pick that up. And another way that I experienced this is people, if you pay attention, sometimes you try to have a good, decent, awesome conversation with them, but they're not really contributing details to the chat, and they just laugh it off. And that's something so bizarre. I can't be that type of person. I am normally laughing and smiling, and I just have a lively spirit and attitude and tone, and that's just how I am. But I am actively listening to you, to where if you revisit this story that you told me about, I will recall the details because I was listening. But if you just don't pay attention and just smile it away or laugh it away because it's a courteous thing to do and a friendly thing to do, it's not as courteous if you're not really paying attention to what the person is saying. And then unfortunately, these might be the very people who call us back later saying, "Hey, I didn't get a bag," or "I'm missing a bag." You know, now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to shift the blame on our patrons, like, not at all. I'm just saying it's something that I observe everywhere I go to, and this is just my way of putting it as an example. I have had instances where for some reason I paid for something and I started walking away, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, I might want to take my bag with me." So we just have so many distractions nowadays that it really, really concerns me. And then another thing is when someone forgets what you just told them. And I experienced this a lot more with my friends, I guess. And if I had to guess as to why this is the case, it's probably because when you're hanging out with friends, you're thinking you're in a relaxed setting and your chatter is mostly informal. But sometimes I wish people could retain stuff about me, like little details, like even if it's insignificant, I keep up with it, not because I'm having to apply a lot of effort to remember things about people. It's just nice to remember things about people. And I feel like that skill, the skill of retention and ordering things in a specific sequence, is just getting lost. And to me, that frustrates me because some people describe some stuff that I accomplish in a day as me having superpowers, and I'm like, no, I was just brought up with lots of discipline and I just keep track of it. And if you hear some beep, that's my fire alarm, and it's irritating because I remember changing the batteries not that long ago and here it is whining again. It's like, what am I paying for? But anyway, another thing is when someone asks a question on something you just told them about. So you gotta repeat yourself. And right now I'm kind of blank when it comes to examples about this, but sometimes, I have an example from yesterday actually. I was calling someone for some customer service help, and they were telling me, and when you have a moment, please tell me your address and phone number. So I was saying my address, including the apartment number, and then I was starting to say my phone number, and she was like, is this an apartment? And I'm like, yes, hence me saying apartment blank. And then she's like, and what's the number or letter associated with it? And I was like, blank. Like I did get frustrated and annoyed and irritated because every day I have an episode where this happens. Either I see someone listening poorly or, just someone gives me an example, and it frustrates me because this is not something I do. And as of lately, I have asked some folks to repeat themselves to me, but it's because there's a lot of noise in the background. That is okay, that is excusable. But when I'm on the phone and I'm taking my time and saying stuff slowly and really enunciating every single one of my words, there's just no excuse. I'm sorry, I just can't tolerate that. It's like I get frustrated, and I guess that's something that I could really just improve in. And then finally, the last thing I could think of was when you give someone instructions and they come back confused or mad because they messed something up. And this is kind of tricky because it's like there is this quote out there, I love it, and it's, I am responsible for what I say, however, I am not responsible for what you understand. And this is a fine example of it. So sometimes when I fail at something, despite being given instructions, there is probably either a flaw in the details, or I was unfamiliar with what you're saying, or I don't do something repeatedly enough to where I know it by heart and I can just proceed on my own. But sometimes the messenger says something a little bit incomplete or too open for interpretation. And if you are someone who's used to reading other types of dialects because the language that you're currently speaking in is not your maternal one, that can generate some challenges of its own. But sometimes I feel like the best instructions I have received in my life have come from an individual who had another language that was not English. And some people say that I explain and express things better than some native English speakers. And the reason I throw into the equation the aspect of language is because English can limit you in how you express yourself. Anybody who studies another language, especially a Romance language, can tell you this. So I feel like English, unfortunately, makes it easy for there to be too many misunderstandings. But it is our job to not be afraid to ask for clarification or for further details, just to make sure that we do things right. And then as for the messenger, you need to be patient enough to bear with the person and appreciate the person for making sure that what you're saying is being understood well, and then is carried out the way that you so desire, or the way it needs to be carried out, you know? So really, I think it's a matter of speaking clearly, taking your time to explain things whenever appropriate, and just be grateful for people actually caring enough to ask for further clarifications, and be patient. You know, modern days make communication difficult. We're so used to our phones, and we don't write as extensively anymore, depending on what you dedicate to, and our communication keeps getting shorter and shorter. And you know, like text messages, we have all these abbreviations, and online and social media and Twitter, we have all those things going on. So it's like we're learning a new language, or we're learning our natural language, but we're learning to shorten it. And in that, we are increasing the odds of us committing mistakes. All right, you guys, and that is all that I have for you at the moment on this matter. This is something that I'm super passionate about, because I believe that I am someone who communicates stuff pretty well and clearly, despite lacking a college education, for example, and enough exposure to a professional setting to where some of this would be something that I deal with more formally day to day. But unfortunately, I don't. So it's up to me to just go ahead and acknowledge the fact that I have made these observations, and then share it with you guys to see what you have to say. All right, you guys. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I love getting to meet you guys and the feedback that you give me, and I love that you guys are finding me and enjoying what I have to say. And yeah, just know that this helps me grow as a person more day to day, especially given that my videos are uncut. It's like I always try to either prepare myself well enough, meditate on something long enough, or write something where I have little notes and not be afraid to read it, even if it's awkward. All right, you guys, I will see you soon.